I came back from holiday about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And whilst I was away, I was reading some more stuff on William James, who is someone I particularly admire, actually. And I was reading some stuff about him I hadn't come across before, which is really exciting, and it's to do with what he called Sciousness. Sciousness. Sciousness, which is a really ungainly word, but for William James, it's the root of the word consciousness. He points out that the con in consciousness signifies accompaniment, with. It's from Latin, I guess, maybe Greek, meaning with. So when you're saying consciousness, you're saying something is with sciousness. And sciousness, as I understand it, or scious, S-C-I-O-U-S, comes from the same root as science and omniscience and those kind of words, and means knowing in the broadest sense. So it's all forms of knowing, from simple sensing to abstraction to theorization, to all forms of knowing, from the most empirical to the least empirical, the most objective. So consciousness in James is with knowing, or with knowingness. And he's distinguishing, where he draws our attention to the con in consciousness, is to recognize that in what we call human consciousness, there's always something going along with this knowing, which is signified by the con, and the accompaniment to this knowing is the subject of that knowing, which is the self. So when you're saying I am conscious, what you're effectively saying is I am with knowing. I am with knowing. The implication being that knowing, that kind of experienceable world, exists, or could exist, and indeed does exist, without oneself being present, which is really obvious in a way, otherwise you'd be falling into a kind of solipsistic trap. But it isn't simply that the world exists, but that knowing the world exists without oneself being present. And he particularly relates it, this is William James again, he particularly relates this sciousness to states of consciousness, so states of mind, states of being, ways of being, in which one does not experience oneself as being present. There is a sense, an experience of being, an experience of knowing, an experience of the world happening, but one does not want to experience oneself as being kind of reflected in the mirror of that world as a subject, or as a subjective position, or a subjective experience. So there is just the world happening, which is an odd understanding. And I think James himself said that whilst he acknowledged that it seems to be a real situation, that condition is possible, he didn't experience it himself, or had never experienced it himself. I think he allies it to other forms of religious experience, feelings of oceanic feelings, for example, that Freud talks about as well. So whilst it's possible to say I am conscious, in fact it's pretty inevitable. If you're saying I am, then the consciousness is implied, and if you're saying consciousness, then the I is implied. Whilst it's very easy to say I am conscious, it's not possible to say I am scious, or I have sciousness. Those phrases wouldn't make any sense, because there is no I in scious, in that sense at least. No Newtonian I, no individual I, no located centre of being. There is just being. Sciousness. I think it's been allied with another term I know absolutely nothing about, which is suchness, which, as I understand it, is a translation from Chinese, I think. Again, it's something I'll have to look up when I get home if I remember. Suchness. I think it's just a convenient similarity in sound, sciousness and suchness. So I think there is a sense in which those two ideas are paralleled. Consciousness. Perhaps it should be sinciousness. I think sin means without in some languages. Italian possibly. So I am sinciousness, or I am sincious, I am not conscious. Would be quite an intriguing phrase to play around with.